Hey, yo, Chico. Rest in peace to Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon, who passed away this week due to complications from multiple heart attacks, which stemmed from complications from his hip surgery. Apparently, he had some blood clots that had moved from his hip and worked their way up towards his heart, which was already in bad condition as it was. He had a pacemaker in at the time. So, as many times as Scott Hall has seemingly been on death's door and throughout, our fandom of him, he's always kicked out. He's always made it through. He's always come back stronger, better, both as a person, as a public figure. Scott Hall is one of, if not, you could make an argument for him being the most influential professional wrestler of all time, period. Now, I know some people will say that's a little bit of hyperbole, but we're going to walk you through it here. Just the incredible career that Scott Hall had. Now, I wouldn't say he's the most, but you could argue it, and I would not laugh you out of the building. I would absolutely hear you out because I would easily put him in my top three. I mean, look at the career that this guy had. First of all, just the Razor Ramon character. He had a career before Razor Ramon. As Scott Hall or as Magnum Scott Hall, and then as the Diamond Stud. And I remember him as the Diamond Stud when he came into the WWF. I remembered him, because I was watching early '90s WCW with Oz and with the Diamond Stud and with Sting and the Four Horsemen, and I remember Sid Vicious over there and Giant Gonzalez and all those people before they jumped ship to WWE. And I don't know that I was the biggest fan of Razor to start with, or even looking back. I'm not one of Razor's biggest fans, but I know people. I'm friends with people who do consider Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, to be one of their all-time favorites. I've heard other people talk about it. That match he had with the 1-2-3 Kid absolutely made the 1-2-3 Kid in WWE. A guy like Sean Waltman at his size never ever would have made it in a WWE without Scott Hall doing what he did for him in that match. That's the definition of putting somebody over. And Scott didn't lose anything from that. It was a fluke, right? It was, 1-2-3 Kid stole one, essentially. And he was chased down that aisle by Razor Ramon, and Razor was coming after him. And I believe 1-2-3 Kid was knocked out. He had knocked himself silly during his moonsault, I believe. Maybe before the moonsault. But when you get up to, in just a 4-time Intercontinental Champion at that time, that was unheard of. I think Jericho's like a 7-time now, and there's some other multiple champions. But in the 90s, in the early 90s, a 4-time champion in anything was pretty fucking rare. I mean, Hulk Hogan had 5 WWF title runs by that point. But that was pretty impressive for, having multiple reigns with a championship. So, before Jericho came along, the Intercontinental title was Razor Ramon's title. In that era, it was Razor's title. And you look at the NWO. Scott Hall changed the business with the NWO on a number of levels. He was the first to really draw that guaranteed money, right? And he had the favored nations clause. So he changed the way that contracts were done. He showed up on national television, having coming off of WWF TV as Razor Ramon, walking down through the crowd. He's still got the toothpick in his mouth. He's still got the little curly Q on his forehead. He's Razor Ramon. He's wearing the vest like Razor wears, but it was the jean jacket. You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Iconic, iconic. And they got sued. WCW got sued the fuck out of themselves for that because, I mean, they were flat out basically putting Razor Ramon on TV. Though, a giant argument could be made to say that Razor Ramon was the Diamond Stud and that was always WCW's intellectual property. You could argue that. Scott Hall was doing the Razor Ramon character as the Diamond Stud. There wasn't a lot of difference. You know, I don't know that he was doing the accent at the time. I can't recall his promos necessarily. He wasn't doing like the Cuban gimmick per se, but he was definitely doing the um, you know, the grease. He had the greasy hair slicked back and the curly. The outfit he wore was exactly the same. You know, swap out the razors for diamonds. I think he even had the diamond's edge or the diamond whatever. Like the move was the same. He was Razor Ramon. But him walking out on Monday Nitro that night, and I watched it. I was watching it live, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget what it was like watching the NWO at that time because you just. I think I was old enough to not. I was old enough to know that it was not real, but it sure as fuck looked real, and I wasn't used to seeing that. This was an era where guys had gimmicks. Gold Dust and Savio Vega and the Ringmaster. And, you know, WCW was a little bit more realistic, but you just never seen guys just walk out in the middle of the ring from the crowd, kick guys out during a match, bully around the announcers, like, and then to further continue with this game changing. So then you move forward. There would not be a Crow Sting without the influence of Scott Hall. Scott Hall is, I think, at this point famously known as the guy who came up with the Crow gimmick for Sting. Who, when Sting was looking for a new way, a new presentation, a new angle to be less of the cartoony kids figure and battle this NWO that's invading the company, it was Scott Hall that said, "Hey, have you ever seen the Crow?" He brought cool to professional wrestling. Him and Kevin Nash, him along with Nash, they were cool. The NWO never would have worked. They brought cool heels. They made cool heels a thing. Even you could argue even before WCW in WWF, Razor was a cool bad guy, right? He was chill. He was laid back. Kevin Nash, he was flipping people off well before Stone Cold was as Diesel. You know, when he turned heel after his match with Bret Hart, he became a cool bad guy. He was edgy. He was cool. Without a Scott Hall in professional wrestling, who knows? He was the first to jump. He made it okay for Kevin to jump to WCW. So would we have gotten the Outsiders? Would we have gotten the NWO if it weren't for Scott Hall? Would we have gotten the Crow Sting if it wasn't for Scott Hall? And because of the NWO, would we have gotten the Attitude Era if it was not for Scott Hall? You know, his name's also often thrown out there as being, you know, the biggest star to never hold a world title. You know, he was still in an era where the world title wasn't a pat on the back. It wasn't a trophy. It wasn't a congratulations. It was a, you know, only the top guy had the strap. And Scott Hall was always just short of that top guy spot, but he was always right underneath it. And he was always a player that you could believably rotate into a championship feud at any point. He had that amazing feud with Goldust in the WWF. I wish he would have stuck around or did more with that. I would have liked to see that play out at WrestleMania 12. You know, we got the Hollywood Backlot Brawl, but that was really supposed to be Scott Hall in there. And of course, he at the time he was uncomfortable and uncomfortable working with Goldust with the gay character. That was new. It was edgy. It was groundbreaking at that time. He'll be missed, man. I mean, he was. Let's not sugarcoat it completely. Scott Hall didn't have a lot of people that he made a lot of enemies throughout his career. He pushed a lot of buttons. He fucked with a lot of people. He was a dick to a lot of people. But he did so much good at the same time. He was always selfless in doing the job. If you look at the NWO, it was very often Scott Hall that got the pin. Rarely Nash, rarely Hogan. Sometimes Waltman if he was in the mix. But otherwise Scott Hall. If somebody was going to take the 3, it was Scott. Scott offered to put over guys like DDP, Chris Jericho. Scott was never selfish like that. Scott was selfish and greedy with his money. His career was driven by how can I get top guy money? I want to make that kind of money. He's famously on record for talking to Vince about it. How can I make that kind of money? And he did. God damn it, he fucking did. So he was a bad guy, but he was our bad guy. He was the bad guy. And I think he'll be remembered for doing so much more good than he ever did bad. Being an asshole doesn't hurt people. It's just, you're just an asshole, right? So Scott's legacy should and hopefully will live on forever. His influence in the business. I think we'll be missing his mind. I think we have been missing his mind from the business. He would have been a great creative. But he's Scott Hall, too. He was a hard guy to... He was a complicated guy. But he's at peace now. And he'll be sorely, sorely fucking missed. And will always be remembered by the pro wrestling fan base.
Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.